The $50 million mistake that destroyed a $5 billion empire. At its peak, Blockbuster was everywhere. Bright blue stores, Friday night movie runs, millions of loyal customers walking through its doors every single week. And Netflix? It was just a tiny startup, struggling to survive. Then came one meeting, one decision, one moment that changed entertainment history forever. Blockbuster laughed at Netflix, and within a decade, Blockbuster was gone. Today I'm going to tell you the story of how a giant fell, how a nobody became a global streaming powerhouse, and the business lessons hiding inside one of the biggest corporate failures ever. And trust me, this isn't just about movies. It's about how companies, and even people, fail when they ignore change. Let's go back to the 1990s. If you wanted to watch a movie, you didn't click a button. You drove to Blockbuster, rows of shelves, new releases lined up, popcorn near the counter. It was an experience. At its peak, Blockbuster had thousands of stores worldwide and billions in revenue. They were the king of home entertainment. And when you're the king, you think the kingdom will last forever. But hidden inside that success was a problem. Blockbuster made huge amounts of money from late fees. People rented movies, forgot to return them, and paid penalties. Those fees made up a massive chunk of profits, and customers hated them. That frustration created an opening. Enter Netflix. In 1997, Netflix started with a simple idea: rent DVDs by mail. No late fees. Keep movies as long as you want. Just return them when you're done. It sounded small, almost silly. Who would wait for movies to arrive in the mail? But customers loved the convenience. No driving, no stress, no penalty charges. And while Blockbuster focused on protecting its stores, Netflix focused on solving customer pain. That difference changed everything. Now here's the moment that sounds almost unbelievable today. Around the year 2000, Netflix was struggling financially, so its founders went to Blockbuster with an offer. They proposed selling Netflix for about $50 million. $50 million. For a company that would later be worth hundreds of billions. And what did Blockbuster do? They said no. Some stories say executives laughed at the idea. Why would a giant buy a tiny mail-order DVD company? From their perspective, it didn't make sense. Blockbuster was massive, profitable, dominant. Netflix looked small and risky. But here's the problem with being successful. Success can blind you. When something is working, you assume it will keep working. And Blockbuster couldn't imagine a future without stores. Meanwhile, Netflix kept evolving. They introduced a subscription model: pay monthly, rent unlimited DVDs. No due dates, no late fees. Customer satisfaction exploded. And something else was happening behind the scenes. Internet speeds were slowly improving. Netflix saw the future coming. Streaming. While Blockbuster focused on physical locations, Netflix was preparing for digital delivery. Think about that for a second. One company optimized the past, the other invested in the future. Now here's where things get interesting. Blockbuster did try to respond. They launched their own DVD by mail service. They even removed late fees at one point. But it was messy. Why? Because their entire business model depended on those fees and store traffic. Every move toward convenience hurt their existing profits. They were trapped. This is called the innovator's dilemma, when your current success prevents you from adapting to the next big thing. And Blockbuster was stuck right in the middle of it. Meanwhile, Netflix moved faster. They weren't worried about protecting stores. They had nothing to lose. In 2007, Netflix launched streaming. At first, the library was small. Video quality wasn't perfect. But the idea was revolutionary. Instant entertainment from home. No driving, no waiting, just press play. And once customers experienced that, there was no going back. Blockbuster still had thousands of physical stores, which suddenly became a massive disadvantage. Rent, staff, inventory, maintenance, huge costs, while customer behavior was changing overnight. Then the financial crisis hit in 2008. Debt piled up, store traffic dropped, and Blockbuster started closing locations. At the same time, Netflix kept growing. Subscriptions increased, technology improved, streaming became the new normal. And here's the brutal part. Blockbuster had the brand, the customers, the resources. They could have dominated streaming, but they were too slow to fully commit. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy, just 10 years after rejecting Netflix. Think about that timeline, like a $5 billion empire erased in a decade, and the company they dismissed became the future of entertainment. So what actually killed Blockbuster? It wasn't just Netflix, it was mindset. First, arrogance. When you're on top, it's easy to underestimate small competitors. Second, fear of change. They worried about losing short-term profits instead of building long-term survival. Third, attachment to the past. They believed their stores were their greatest asset. But those stores became their biggest burden. And this lesson goes beyond corporations. It applies to careers, investing, even personal growth. The world changes fast. What works today might not work tomorrow. And ignoring small shifts can become a huge mistake later. Here's something else most people miss. Netflix wasn't guaranteed to win. They took risks. They disrupted their own DVD business by pushing streaming. They were willing to kill their old model to build a new one. That's hard to do. Most people, and companies, wait too long because change feels uncomfortable. But waiting can be more dangerous than moving. Now think about the psychology of this story. Blockbuster saw Netflix as a threat to their existing business. Netflix saw technology as an opportunity to reinvent entertainment. Same market, different mindset. And mindset determines survival. Today, Netflix produces original movies and series watched by hundreds of millions worldwide. Blockbuster? Only one store remains, a nostalgic reminder of what once was. One store. From thousands, that's how fast disruption can happen. So what lessons can you take from the $50 million mistake? Number 1. Never underestimate small changes in behavior. Customers rarely change overnight until suddenly they do. Number 2, success today doesn't guarantee survival tomorrow. You have to adapt before you're forced to. Number 3, protect your future more than your past. Holding on to what used to work can destroy what could work next. And number 4, the biggest risk is assuming you're too big to fail, because history says otherwise. Now here's the most ironic part of this entire story. Blockbuster had one advantage Netflix didn't. Physical presence, millions of customer interactions every week. If they had embraced innovation early, they could have used their stores as launchpads for digital services. But instead of reinventing themselves, they defended the old model until it was too late. And that's a lesson we see again and again. Technology doesn't destroy companies. Resistance to change does. So the next time you see a small trend or a new idea that looks insignificant, pay attention. Because big revolutions often start looking small. Just like Netflix did. This is Finn Wealthwise. And if this story made you think differently about change, business, or even your own future, remember this. The companies that survive aren't always the biggest. They're the ones willing to evolve before they have to. And sometimes, the biggest mistakes aren't the decisions you make. They're the opportunities you laugh at. I'll see you in the next one.